Hello everybody, my name is Het, and today I am going to do the first crystal class entitled Introduction to Clear Quartz. So basically what this class is going to be, as I mentioned earlier, is it's going to be basically we're going to almost interview a different stone every week, and I'm going to tell you about the history, I'm going to tell you about the magical uses, I'm going to tell you just some background of the stone, I'm going to share my own experiences, and then I am going to tell you a fun and interesting activity you can use to work with clear quartz. Anyway, so first off, quartz is a very, very sort of, I wouldn't say tricky, but there's just a lot of different types of quartzes. And they come in a vast variety of color. They basically come in every sort of color. However, clear quartz, often called rock crystal as well, or crystal quartz, is the sort of clear or silverish variety of it. It has sort of an icy appearance, and usually the clearer the quartz is, the higher grade quartz that will be. So, for instance, something that's actually there's another type of quartz called milky quartz that are basically clear quartz, except they have basically they're cloudy because of elements that were included when the crystal was forming, and so those are called milky quartz, which are quartz that are not really good enough to be turned into jewelry. They do have their purposes though. So clear quartz has a Mohs hardness of 7, so it's pretty hard. It's not gonna crumple in your hand. It's gonna take something pretty nasty and heavy to snap it. And so it's very strong. It's very strong. I actually, one of the reasons it's often used in manufacturing is because it's so strong. And now we're going to get into a little bit of quartz's use, and we're going to discuss briefly the industrial use of quartz as well as the magical use, and we'll go further into detail about the magical uses. So quartz, particularly clear quartz, it is great at transferring energy, and that's important in machinery. It's often a component in machinery and technology. And that's also important in witchcraft. As you know, a great deal of spells is transferring energy into a particular vessel, tying something with an intention so that spell may manifest in a certain way. Clear quartz is great because it's basically a blank slate. It definitely specializes in things, but it also just works as like a battery, essentially. So if you want to strengthen your other spells, for instance, if you're making a spell bag or you're making a spell jar, you can just add a clear quartz to it. They are particularly good if they are charged in moonlight. Depending on the type of quartz, it can be faded in sunlight, but it is fine in water, it's fine being buried, it's fine in salt water. The one thing with the sunlight is it may, damage the quartz slightly. However, it'll still work and function as a quartz. And so you can basically charge it any way you would like. Like I said earlier, quartz is incredibly durable. It is going to be really hard to break. On the flip side of that, don't accidentally hurt yourself with it. For instance, I have this trick where to remember my dreams, I keep a clear quartz under my pillow, and what's great about that is it makes you remember your dreams so vividly. I have fond memories of friends coming up to me, because I've always had vivid dreams, and my friends being like, oh, I don't have dreams really, and I'll be like, oh, well, here's a clear quartz, put it under your pillow, you'll remember your dreams. And they always come back, and they're like, oh my god, I totally did. That's freakish. However, if you're gonna put it under your pillow, just like make sure that it doesn't fall out and you can accidentally get hurt by it. I had an incident where in college a clear quartz fell from my pillow and it fell down onto my roommate who was below me in the bunk bed. So, that's not a pleasant thing to wake up to. And, if you roll over it and stuff, it can be uncomfortable. But you're not going to hurt the stone. So that's good. That's good news. Clear quartz is incredibly common. It is the most common type of quartz, and quartz, also known as silicon dioxide, is the most common mineral on Earth's surface. So, especially if you don't have money or you're not into supporting metaphysical shops, because, sometimes these gemstones are acquired, with they are acquired in a way that hurts the earth. And so I, for instance, have started looking for my own stones, and it is very, very easy to find quartz. Basically, if you pick up a rock and you see some shimmer, particularly if you see veins of what looks like a white crystal, that is going to be quartz. It might not be the highest quality. You might not be able to make jewelry with it, but it is quartz, and it will function the same way. And so you can basically find it anywhere, particularly in Michigan. I go exploring in riverbeds and on lake shores, and I am able to find quite an abundance of silicon dioxide, things like jaspers, clear quartz. But you'll probably be able to recognize a clear quartz if you know to look for it. Also, since quartz is incredibly durable, oftentimes when you find stones that have quartz in them, they are very old. So that's just some fun information. It does not crumble easily. And what also is great about that, you can reuse it in spells over and over again, which is super nice. So I mentioned earlier that quartz are kind of like a battery, and they're used in both industry and are very useful in magic and in, spiritual exercises. Quartz is interesting because it forms points naturally. If you look on my screen, which I'm sharing with you, I have some points right here, which I believe are mostly natural. And then of course there's two polished versions up here. And they can be polished into like a sharper, more streamlined quartz like crystal shape. However, that I also have plenty of round clear quartzes as well, but naturally they kind of grow in sort of like a spiky manner. And what's great about that is that it's very, very easy to build crystal grids out of them. And so basically with a crystal grid, you want to magnify the energy of particular stones, and so having a couple of clear quartzes in there is super helpful, because unless you have already fixed this quartz with a specific purpose, it will amplify the powers of the other stones, and that is very helpful. Clear quartz is a very, very great neutral tool that you can just throw into a spell if you want to make it stronger. However, with that being said, don't forget to cleanse it in between uses. It will still hold on to energy if you just take it from one spell. You don't dump it in another. You want to cleanse it. You want to charge it. And that's where moonlight comes in handy, where salt water comes in handy, where sound comes in handy. I have started using sound. You can use the smoke of incense. You can use really any other method of cleansing you use for any other tool. Just make sure you do that before transferring your quartz into another spell or another magical working, because you don't want to have that overlap. So, with that being said, quartz is really great for anything. It can be great for protection. I personally use it for psychic manifestation and psychic work. Like I said, I put the clear quartz under my bed so I remember my dreams. It is an excellent healing stone, and because it's clear, it can it can get in touch with any of the chakras, basically. And so you have this very versatile stone. Actually, finding notes for this class, I sort of struggled to come up with concrete points to speak about clear quartz with, because it's just so useful. The only thing, I've heard of clear quartz being used in curses and hexes. I've never done that personally, so I don't know if it works. But I've had excellent success with psychic protection, energy work of any kind. It's okay, Otto. Bye bye. Energy work of any kind, it's really useful. And if you're making, as I mentioned earlier, like a little crystal bag or something, it can be helpful to amplify that energy. And so now we get on to the part where I talk about sort of what you can do, like a cool activity you can do. As I've been mentioning many times, clear quartz can basically do anything you want it to. It is a blank slate. So something that I came up with a couple years ago is if you have an ingredient, particularly I harvest many of my ingredients in the forest, and sometimes it can be difficult to identify them. Even things like dandelions have wide ranges in the leaf size, flower color, leaf color. It can be very tricky. So something I've learned to do, and this also works for something that you are familiar with, say it's an herb, but you can't find information about what it does online. So to do that, what you want to do is you want to take a red bag, which is like the most basic bag color for manifestation of pretty much anything, and you want to take that mystery ingredient and put it in the red bag along with a charged clear quartz and see what happens. It can be very, very difficult to figure out intentions of different herbs, different crystals, different metals, and if there's no information about it, that also is a struggle. I have plants like fleabane daisy in my area that are abundant and I imagine would be super useful, but because they were either not necessarily used as much in traditional witchcraft, or they're not used as much now, or they're just not in areas where these authors were coming from. It was hard for me to find information about the fleabane daisy. And so what I wanted to do is I took some of that daisy, added it to a red bag, added a clear quartz. That'll amplify it. Of course, that can be risky, because if you don't know the ingredient well, you could accidentally be amplifying something nasty. Basically, the red bag and the clear quartz are just they're just neutral parties there to amp up the natural power of the other ingredient you're adding. So it can be a really, really great way to figure out what an ingredient does. Now, again, I feel bad, now that we're getting to the end of our lesson, that I don't really have, for instance, like a list of things that clear quartz is good at. It's great with energy work. It's great with healing. It's great with psychic work. It's great for divination. Clear quartz itself is easy to cleanse, and it is able to be cleansed. It is able to cleanse other things. However, it is not like a citrine, where a citrine cannot be corrupted. Negative energy will cling to a clear quartz, so you have to make sure to clean it often. However, it basically is a neutral battery that you can really apply anything to. That's how it has been in my experience. And so thank you for coming to my class. Does anyone have any questions? If not, that's totally fine. So, Smoky Quartz is, Sage asks, what about Smoky Quartz? Smoky Quartz is a different type of quartz. It has a different macrocrystalline, macrocrystalline, Also rosy quartz. So these are the same chemically speaking. They're all silicone dioxide, rose quartz, smoky quartz, clear quartz. They are chemically the same, though they appear differently because they are formed under different circumstances. And if you'd like me to go into greater detail of that, I could probably, but I would prefer to do more research. However, basically what happens is when these stones are being formed, other minerals and materials get into the stones to change the color, change the texture, change the opacity, change, the appearance. And so, for instance, clear quartz is much more glassy. Rose quartz and yes, smoky quartz and rose quartz have different uses and specific uses, but today we are just covering clear quartz. There are hundreds of different types of quartz, and so I just felt like it would be good to basically introduce you to the most basic one. Rose quartz is associated with the heart chakra, and obviously it's sort of a pink color, hence the name rose quartz. Yes, smoky quartz is for protection, like I said, and they have other uses as well, but today we are just covering the clear quartz. So no, it's okay, don't worry. I just wanted to keep everything on track. Basically what these are, no, it's okay, don't worry. All questions are good questions. But yeah, that's why I wanted specifically to talk about clear quartz, is because it is the most basic and the most common kind of quartz, and it is a little weird because it doesn't necessarily have very specific things it specializes in, other than energy work. I would say great for divination, great for psychic development, just overall a really, really great stone to use. It has lots of different uses if you want to inscribe a specific meaning to the clear quartz. How do you tell the intention after you put the quartz in the bag? What happens? Okay, so basically you just have to kind of observe, and you may need to carry the bag around with you for a couple weeks, depending on, if it's a fast acting ingredient, if it's a bit more of like a slower acting ingredient. But basically you just have to kind of watch what happens, and if something very specific changes in your life, you can immediately point and be like, oh, that's this new ingredient that I couldn't find any information about. That's probably what's doing this. You can also confirm with divination, but it is not a foolproof method. However, it is good if you have, for instance, some kind of plant that is really common in your area, but there's no information about it online or in books. It can be great if it's something that you're going to be using over and over again and you want to know what it does. So it's certainly not a foolproof method, but it can certainly be helpful if you remain observant. All right, and do you have another question? Because I think we're about done with today's lesson. Of course! Thank you for coming. I hope to make this a weekly class. Hopefully my future crystal courses will be a little bit more clear cut. I hope to have better notes next time, and I just clear cut. Yeah, fair. But I wanted to start with clear quartz because of all the reasons I mentioned earlier. It's a little bit weird, but it's also one of the most useful and basic tools for a witch. So anyway, thank you. And everyone have a wonderful night.